continues on in spite of the weather. And so I'm just going to, real quick, because it's only about a 2-minute thing, give you an update on the transparency letter. First of all, if you haven't signed it and would like to, I have copies of it. We're up to over 120 signatures on it now, and just based on tonight's meeting, whatever signatures are added tonight, I'm going to make multiple copies, and the two main recipients of the letter will be Mayor Kim and Governor Ige, although I intend to make probably 25 copies in total and get them to other people who are peripherally involved in it, probably including the folks from the R&D committee. So congratulations to all of you for getting so many signatures. A bunch of you I know went around the neighborhood and gathered signatures, and that's good old grassroots at its best. So Steve's going to, in Robert's doing one of the most fun things a person can do, which is he's visiting his grandkids, and it doesn't get much better than that. So in California. But Steve's going to run the meeting tonight, and we've decided he'll do the intros, but we've decided to put the folks who came from Hilo County at the top of the agenda. And also, just so you know, there will be no time limit at all placed upon the Q&A that we have with them, other than by them, obviously. But we don't have an arbitrary time on it. So anyway, Steve's going to run it from here on, and thank you again for signing the letter.
Thanks, Andy. Again, thank you all for coming in the rain. Yes, tonight we have guests from the Department of Research and Development. Yes, I'll let them introduce themselves.
It's big enough.
There you go. There you go. Right. This is Diane Lay and Ron Whoitmore.
Well, good evening, everyone. Aloha. As Steve said, I'm Diane Lay. I'm the director for the Department of Research and Development. So that is your county department that is basically your economic development office. We support agriculture, business, community development, energy initiatives, creative industries, including film. We also have a tourism program that focuses on the visitor sector, and we support immigration through dissemination of information and assistance with filling out applications. So that's our primary role, and I'll let Ron also introduce himself. But I'll just say that I'm a resident of Puna. I've been from the upper area, from Fern Forest and Volcano, and but I do have family that have lost their homes in the Kapoho area, and so moving forward. The other initiative that Ron and I are responsible for leading is the recovery effort from this eruption. So somewhat distinct from emergency response. So at times you'll hear us say that we don't have the jurisdiction over that, policy or those issues, but, we'd be happy to point you in the direction that where you might find the answers, okay?
Good evening. My name is Ron Whoitmore. I'm Deputy Director in the Department of Research and Development. Can you hear okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ron, move a little closer to the mic.
All right. I apologize. I live in Hilo with my family. My kids go to Hilo High School. I have spent 25 years working in community development from the grassroots perspective, ran a nonprofit community development corporation, from the for-profit perspective and now in government for the last 11 years. Before coming to research and development, I was the lead long-range planner for the county. So I've been heavily involved in various community development plans and the general plan work for years. And so I share that only because I've been working with community on issues, basically on helping them clarify and identify goals and objectives and finding the best strategies, whether they're policies or actions the county can take or actions the private sector or community can take to collaboratively achieve community goals. So, we very much approach our work from that frame. In many respects, we are the place at which community connects with county, and so we appreciate that role, and we appreciate working with community folks like you, and we're happy to be here, and really are here to listen and answer your questions as best we can.
Before we get into questions, I'd like to have a pulley.
That's all right, I don't need it. I think you.
Keep the peace.
Oh, now need to holiday hey, hallelujah, no, no, oh, ta no, ane, ho, io, te mai, na, mai, ke ia hale, ke ia po, no. Oh, my ka ike ia aina. Oh, my ka ike ia o hana. Oh, no. Oh, no, ike my luna, yeah. Mama, wanoa, aloha, aloha, aloha.
Thank you. So now we can open this for question and answers. Anybody have a question?
Thank you. My name is Donald Daughtry. I am the owner of Vitality Integrative Medicine here in Pahoa. I have 2 doctors, a counselor, and 2 employees working for me. So we do not accept insurance except for labs. So we are completely the most capitalistic medical entity you can think of. People don't get better. We don't get paid. So what we're seeing is due to this flow, we've had an 80% drop in business. So we were operating with about 20% of the income I was in April. Now we're still keeping doors open and the lights on, but it's a struggle. And talking to other businesses who I've been with, it's pretty clear where the need is. There's 2 areas, of course, is repopulating Pahoa, and I think Eileen is doing a great job on that. Thank you, Eileen. But on the business side of what we need as a business, I don't think we're being heard completely from people that's talked to me. The main one we're going to need is going to be marketing. Okay, I know that is a boring thing, but right now there's 2 big things. One is we have the negative impact of all of Pahoa is under lava, and there's no businesses left. Okay, and the other is, and that's the negative side is, and the other side is these Pahoa people in business. Both Volcano and Pahoa Main Street have been trying to combat that. So I think that's a very good cue of where a lot of government need to help businesses needs to go. And the second, of course, is some kind of business rent relief during this period of time. It's, we're going to have a hard time making our bills, and if at least we can have some rental assistance in these businesses to pay our either our mortgage or our rent, in my case rent, then we know we're going to make it through until the folks come back. I've been through, this is our 3rd natural disaster. We know the pattern, how it works. We see this is the worst, obviously. We've lost 800 of our friends and families, our customers. And it's hard to say it that way as customers because they were not just customers. They were our friends and family, right? And what we need is some kind of targeted marketing and allow businesses input on that. The best way to do it, honestly, would be for you guys to just give some kind of a fund where a business can go and advertise in local media. I mean, a great boon to local media, you guys giving them a bunch of money for us to go advertise. But it would work. Right now, it's the main question of we get from our customers, are you still there, right? And are you going to be able to stay there? And it's a hard question for us to answer. And that's where we need help from you folks. And one other thing that I've got a bunch of things was businesses are also going to need some classes on marketing on some of this stuff, specifically social media. Websites and social media have not been part of PAHOA's charm for a while. We like being unwired, but we're going to need to get a little bit more wired, and most of the businesses don't know how to go about it. And I know there's a couple of people who've even been offered to give classes if they're subsidized a little bit, because these people have to earn their money too. So, Facebook teaching and website building teaching, that's going to be real important. Thank you.
Did you want us to respond? Okay. Well, first of all, in the very first month of the eruption, we reached out and we met with the PAHOA Main Street program because they are your primary business entity, and government likes to work with collectives versus individual businesses for the most part, because we need to be equitable and fair in our approach. So we reached out and we had staff go out and attend meetings. Unfortunately, Ron and myself were not available because we had responsibilities with emergency response the first 6 weeks, specific to communications, infrastructure, water, energy, and the like. So we were pretty busy, as all of you were those first few weeks. So we did send staff out, and we brought along one of our largest partners. The county's largest partners is the Island of Hawaii Visitors Bureau. Now, the Visitors Bureau has a contract with the county for marketing. They can do targeted marketing, which they did. They partnered with the Main Street program to do, I believe it was radio ads. And so that was something that they want, that the association determined they wanted. And similarly with Volcano, we work with them to put together a brochure and do some outreach. I believe they're expanding upon a website as well. So that was one of the initial initiatives. And then doubling back over the weeks, we worked with the Visitors Bureau again, and they did targeted marketing for basically come out and see the glow and have dinner and a glass of wine or some ice cream and visit your local doctor. I don't think they went that far maybe, but anyway, the idea was to get the visitors out of West Hawaii and get them here. They also organized a FAM tour, a familiarization tour with marketers for the Japan market in particular, because that was a market that was kind of dipping, and so wanted to make sure we pick that back up and make sure it's strong. So we're going to continue to work with them. We have also reached out to our partners at Hawaii Tourism Authority. They have put significant dollars back in for what they are calling emergency marketing and promotion with the Visitors Bureau to keep our visitors on island and keep them visiting different locations. As we move forward in the coming weeks, we're going to be, one of the things we're asking for the legislature is additional support for not only marketing, but also for product. And what I mean by product is, we lost our national park. We lost access to, many areas that visitors like to go to. So we need to refresh some of the other sites that maybe it was a smaller park, or maybe it was a smaller lookout that, not too many people pulled off on. Maybe only a few people saw it on social media. There wasn't really good signage, maybe no parking, maybe no luas. So we need to do that. And so that's one of the things we'll be asking for around the island. And, we'd like to work with businesses such as PAHOA to identify product that you think is important to, advertise about, to promote, and to maybe do some improvements. So that's the kind of work that we're going to be continuing to do. So, I don't know if Ron, you want to add anything?
Yeah, just a couple things. One is, I'd like to really emphasize, so no, not all business owners are always aware, but there is what I generally refer to as a business development ecosystem out there. And it includes a number of organizations, both public and private, whose mission is to help small businesses start, grow, and develop over time. So the most prominent one is the SBDC, the Small Business Development. It's a C-SCAN. Yeah. Center. And they are there to provide free consultations, business plan development, business plan modification. And so that's where I would always recommend people start first if they're facing challenges as a small business. Similarly, the Kohala Center has quite a robust small business set of development resources, both staff and even small-scale funding, microfinancing available. And then there's other state agencies on the island. The HTTC has a half-time mentor, they call them, who's available to support businesses as well. So, and there's others. So just want to remind people that there are always these systems in place to support small businesses, and they're particularly attuned to the fact that small businesses on the island are facing unprecedented challenges, and so they're making themselves as available as possible for folks who need to, really rethink things given a new reality.
Hi, thank you. My name's Andrea Rosanoff, and I live in Leilani. And I am the director of and creator of the Center for Magnesium Education and Research. We're a group of independent scholars that do international research on nutritional magnesium. And so our service and business to the world has not been drastically affected by this event because it's international and it's done by email and all that kind of stuff. But I just have moved back home after being evacuated since May 3rd. And what I want to find out from you guys, that there's been a lot of maybe rumors and information going around, and I would like to hear from you. Beat in Leilani has been a very special event because, of course, this fabulous thing has happened, which has been devastating to our lives as we know it. Some of us are in a completely different path, but all of us are on an alternative path that we haven't been there before. And I have heard from people that there has been some, at least discussion in the county government somewhere of condemnation of Leilani Estates property for some other purpose because of it. I'm curious as to whether this discussion was really true. If two, what was the context of it? 3, where did it come from and for what purpose? Were they thinking condemnation? Were they thinking just blue sky? What are all the possibilities that might happen here? Is it still on the table? And was there a reason to not kind of include us in that discussion of it? It was frightening to hear those kinds of things and to not know how much reality there was and what context it was taken in. So I'm really, really curious about that. And I'm wondering that if it was something that was on the table or is still on the table, where would it go and what stage is it at this point? And I might have some follow-up questions on that.
Well, maybe I could just address the fear part. I just want to, and then Ron can maybe get into some of the mechanics of what you're talking about. So, and the conversation around that. So, I just want to acknowledge that you folks have really been brave. You're still here. You're still here in your community, and it's hard. It's really been hard, and I really, we've all been through a lot of loss, a lot of trauma, and yet you're coming to meetings, you're taking care of each other, you're looking after each other, you're asking the government hard questions like, hey, why aren't you doing this for me, And I think you're asking yourselves, what should I be doing? And so And I just want to acknowledge that I'm not a counselor or a sociologist. There's lots of great resources out there, great doctors and great people who want to support you. But I just want to say that, that we're all in this together. County's made up of community members as well. So, hang in there. And we're not jumping to conclusions about anything, including condemnation. So I'm going to let Ron kind of give you a bigger, broader picture of what? Well, okay, we're going, yes, and that's what I said. I said, please let me, just kind of frame and acknowledge your fears, your frustrations, and your concerns, okay? I'm going to let Ron kind of dive in a little bit into where we are in this bigger process, okay? And it doesn't just include condemnation, or it may not include condemnation, okay?
So I believe it was, so a presentation was made to council, and then that was shared at a community meeting in Pahoa some weeks ago. And it was a broad overview of the larger recovery effort, but with a focus on housing specifically. So I believe that's where people saw the word originally on the screen. And so that's the framing for it, is where we understand there's some urgency to, particularly for the folks who are in the difficult situation of being in either mandatory evacuation areas or voluntary evacuation areas, where their house is standing. It may be habitable, depending on your perspective and the legal definitions of that based on the different agencies.
Here's about the law.
And yet, because it's still considered in a hazard zone, you can't make any definitive final decisions about what to do. So we understand that. So we understand that sense of urgency for some people, particularly who are in that situation. And so we're considering a range of tools specific to what we call the directly impacted area. And this is all part of a longer, beginnings of conversations about what the long-term future for Puna looks like, given that it's now a dramatically different place. And that planning involves both thinking about what the future of the directly impacted areas, as well as what resettlement patterns might look like for people who have to find new homes, okay? And so as it relates to how we address the future of this directly impacted area, we're trying to look at the full, toolbox that we have at our disposal to solve what are a very broad range of issues. And I want to stress that we're at the very beginning of that exploration process, and that as we go down that road, of course, will involve the people that would be most directly impacted by decisions that be made. So I'm going to stress that right off the bat, that yes, though it's been considered, no decisions by any means have been made. But we do understand that in some situations, it may be an appropriate tool, or it may even be a tool that someone may prefer that the government use, depending on their circumstance. If I could explain a bit more to answer your question.
Sure.
But I did, again, just want to stress it's part of many different options we're considering, and no definitive decisions have been made. But I want to explain the steps that we have taken to try to clarify what those options are. So when you think about the impacted area, there are many different situations, and I've been referring to them as case types. So some are fairly straightforward in terms of they're inundated by lava, right? The house is gone if there was one. The property's been transformed. Okay, so that's one case type. Another is what you might call isolated, those areas that no longer are accessible because they've been surrounded by lava, even though they may not be inundated, right? And then there's those that are mandatory evacuation zones, those that are in restricted areas still, but have greater access. And then there's also areas where there's still very high risk, either because we know from historic lava flows that it's very likely that at some point in time, eruption in this rift will impact them directly, or even in this current eruption, right? And so, and then for each of those case types, there's two subsets. There's properties with structures on them and those that are vacant, right? And so I only share that to explain that we need to consider solutions or range of solutions for each of those different types of case types, and they are very likely to look different. The ones where condemnation comes most quickly to mind for some is those that are inundated, where, the decision may be made that, hey, you know what, based on past experience and very recent experience, we may all agree that it makes no sense for those to ever be developed again, in which case it would be very appropriate for the government to exercise its powers, compensate the landowner for the property, make it public land, eventually maybe transform it into a park or some other public space. So those are the kind of more straightforward options. I'm not saying that's the best solution for that. I'm just saying that's usually where that sort of tool is considered, right? So just to explain the steps we're going through to try to come to some clarity on how best to address these unique situations. We're clarifying those case types. And then we're also in an ongoing process of really clarifying for people kind of where their property stands, because we know there's been some confusion in terms of what's been communicated from the county via the real property tax office, from FEMA in terms of how they interpret the situation people are in, depending on whether their house has been is still standing or not, and whether it's inhabitable or not. And same with SBA. So we're trying to get everyone on the same page in terms of being clear about where people stand. A complete hazard assessment of the area has been done. I hope you've all seen I think it was the July 15th report that Hawaii Volcanoes Observatory released, which updated their assessment of the hazard in this area. So that was extremely helpful. And we know that the next step then it's distinct from hazard assessment as risk assessment, is very clearly understanding what the real risk is, and that's a function not only of the hazard, but also of the vulnerabilities and your capacity to deal with those. And we know we need additional expertise to really assess the risks, and that's really what should drive policymaking and decision-making about these different case types. But we're in the process of securing resources to do that and finding the right expertise to help us with that. We were just awarded a hazard mitigation grant, which we hope serves as the funding source to do that important risk assessment. And then, as Diane mentioned earlier, in the package we're putting together for the various legislative bodies, we're making some specific asks both for the funding we might need, as well as some of the legislative tools we might need, so we're sure we have the toolbox and the resources at our disposal to try to come to the appropriate solutions for this impacted area. And then I guess the final thing I'd share is that we think that each individual landowner or homeowner is probably going to have a unique solution. And we learned, it was helpful to sit down and talk story with the folks who were involved in the Kaiko'o plan, if you're familiar, the plan that was developed post-1960 tsunami in Hilo, where the entire community was wiped out. And after that, they did this. They either acquired or condemned all the property in that area, and they left it up to the landowner and homeowner to make that choice, because depending on your those choices have implications for your property tax, for your income tax, for a whole range of things. And so that decision needs to be made on a case-by-case basis. And so we're anticipating that may very well be the case in this situation as well, where our job may be to help come up with a menu of options for folks and help them figure out what is going to make the most sense for them, depending on their long-term goals and preferences. And decisions that are made at the county level in terms of, where we think it's safe to have people settle over the long term. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Okay. That gives me a lot more clarity than I had before. And so what I see in front of us for, say, Leilani, of the area that is both in mandatory evacuation now and in non-mandatory evacuation now, where several homes are left, and that the volcano seems to have died down, at least at Fissure 8 and around. And I understand that everybody's going to have to wait and see if that's real, rather than start up the whole thing, take the the government structure down and then pull it back together again. I can understand that. But what I hear from you is, and I want to make sure I got this right, is that in the meantime, there is going to be, for that area of Leilani, a risk assessment. You guys are going to try to do a risk assessment of how safe it is to live in Upper Leilani and down by Pomaikai and in the mandatory evacuation areas and so on, and that you're going to be bringing in experts probably from outside of the area in this to do some risk assessments. Is that correct?
That's what we hope to do. We're in the process of securing the resources to do that and find the right expertise. And it would be for actually the greater Lower Puna area, recognizing that it may vary quite a bit just within a very small region. And so, but absolutely, they would, as part of that, they would absolutely engage the people who've been impacted, whose futures would be impacted by any decisions that would be made. So there'd be a whole lot of stakeholder engagement and public involvement in that process.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I understand you need experts, but we're experts too in our area.
Yeah,
and I just want to put that on the table.
That was my last point. Yeah, I was like,
Hi, my name is Bo Brita. My husband and I own a house on Kahukai within sight of the Pomaikai barrier. It has never, ever been hurt by the lava, and except for the first few days in May, no Pele's hair and very little SO2. One of the things you're talking about is the loss of business. And I wonder if you think of it from the customer's end, what you have done by the mandatory, I'm not saying you, I'm saying the government, okay, you don't have to take it personally, but by doing this to us, making us feel like criminals and prisoners, is that you have emotionally damped us down with anxiety and fear, and people have fled. And then sometimes they come back, but they don't know what to do. They don't know if they're ever going to get back in their house. And you would be amazed at the amount of money. I have noticed, because I keep the books of our family, my husband and I haven't spent any money in the past 3 months. Almost nothing. Normally, I'm out there buying things every day. And him too. But we're not buying. You ever think about that? What you have done to us by making us criminals is that you have stopped us from being customers in Pahoa and around. Yeah. Think about that. Because I'm telling you, it's going to get ugly. We want that barrier taken down. There's no need for it. There has never been a need for it. And we just might have to go in and break it down ourselves and get arrested because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
if I could, I just want to apologize. I was
okay.
smiling, laughing there because I saw your husband behind you commenting on your remarks about who was spending money. So I was listening to what you're saying.
He is. His wife says he's a great husband. So I just want to clarify. I think, to provide clarity that Ron and I are here tonight, to engage with you folks, listen, and again, we have a great deal of empathy for what you've been through, but policies about the barricades and security and the placards, those decisions were made in consultation with the Hawaii Volcanoes Observatory. Again, scientists that are monitoring and watching, along with trained professionals at Civil Defense, HIEMA, your Hawaii State Emergency Management, and the mayor, who's had extensive background working in civil defense. And we understand that it's not meeting the needs of everyone, but those policies were established and they're being enforced to the degree possible, okay? And we understand that the trauma and the challenges that this has placed in. but people have not been hurt, okay? Physically by the lava, okay? And we're not here to argue that, okay? So please be, Ron and I don't make those decisions, okay? And we don't represent directly those decisions. So.
Hi, my name is Andy Andrews. I live in Leilani Estates. I'm still in my home. My home was not inundated by the lava, and I've, for the most part, been living in my home since May the 3rd. I wanted to first acknowledge, most of you know Eileen O'Hara, but our council person's here tonight, so a big thanks to her for coming out. I was referencing a thing that you guys heard and probably haven't seen that we've put together called the Transparency Letter. You're going to get a whole gamut of opinions, emotions, thoughts about the way things should be for the future, for what's happened in the past. But I think there's one thing that we all agree on, is we feel absolutely excluded from the process. Right out of the gate, there were decisions made for us rather than either by us or in consultation with us. The unfortunate showing up of the word condemnation that I think you guys did a fabulous job of explaining what that meant and what the implications were. But for people who are in a state of fear and anxiety and loss, those are incendiary words that did nothing but create what we felt was a greater divide between us and our elected officials and those of you who work for those elected officials. What I hope we don't do tonight is shoot the messenger, and by messenger I mean you guys. But I also do feel, though, that part of your role here tonight is more than that, is the Research and Development Committee. It's to help us be a conduit to our county government. And so of course, you'll hear things that are outside of your purview, but they're things that matter a lot to people in this room, and me included. So you guys coming tonight is for us is a big step. The fact that the county is here tonight, this is a really important step. But my question is, would it be would it be possible? We want you to involve representatives of Leilani Estates in every single discussion that you have about Leilani Estates. We're not children. I know I'm being a little pedantic here, but we're a group of educated, concerned, and experienced people who, just as Andy said a moment ago, on lots of things we're experts too. But the things we're most expert on is what we want for our own future. And so you guys helping us to find the future that we want is far more important to us than the future that you may want for us.
Ron, I really appreciate what you said, because it opened my heart. Every day I use the term, I have to be brave enough to let my heart break. I am a nurse. I had an incredible client. I want to humble. I do not want to forget the people that totally, within 48 hours, had everything taken away from them down in the Kapoho farm lots, the beach lots, the vacation lands, farmers. And this young man I took care of was displaced. He grew up there, late 70s. His mother built 7 acres. His mother built their homes. Her older boy lived there. They lived there. And they've been displaced. They've had to move around. And his words are, it breaks my heart and go with the flow. And I was like, oh. And he is a disabled young man, and he's going to be 18, and he is well known in the community. But I've just kind of humbled myself recently, because I've stayed here, I've been grieving, I'm in the involuntary section. My home is still standing, but I think of what these other families and friends I've been blessed to know, They don't have anything to organize. They don't have, their homes were totally taken by lava.
If I could just have a couple quick responses to Andy's questions and comments. That's absolutely the intention. We know that no good planning for anybody is done without the people whose community you're doing the planning for are actively involved. So that's a given. And the only reason that hasn't happened yet is because none of the planning really has begun. The only reason we've been exploring and considering what tools we might use is because we want to make sure we have the resources we need to help the community solve its problems together with us, which is related to the legislative package we're pulling together and the resources we're trying to assemble. And so it's been in that spirit. And part of the resources are that we know we need greater capacity within county government to be better partners with community. And so that's absolutely the intention. And you can rest assured, no planning has been done and no planning will be done moving forward that's going to impact you that won't involve you. Other quick thought, we are part of a team of folks within the county that works together to try to be very clear about community questions and concerns and to make sure that they're understood within the broader county effort. And so that's why we're here tonight, to listen to your concerns and so we can help the rest of our colleagues back at the county understand them. And then one other quick thought is that, and Diane alluded to it earlier, is this event is unprecedented in many ways. And one way is in that it's been ongoing while at the same time we've had to consider and think about what recovery looks like, right? And so it has stretched county resources really beyond capacity. And so the main reason we haven't been quick to get to recovery to some extent is that we've been so focused on the immediate response efforts, helping people meet their most basic needs. And so we apologize if we ever gave the impression that planning is going on in any kind of concerted way. But we're really just at the stages of thinking about what that's going to look like and assembling the resources to do that well. So.
And if I can just add before next question or comment, to kind of follow on with Ron, like I said, initially our department was responsible, Ron and I responsible for communications and infrastructure and making sure those pieces were coordinated. There was changes every day going on. And so we were very involved in that. And then it evolved once FEMA came to town, both for the public assistance as well as, more importantly, the individual assistance that could help many of you as family and your other family members within the community. Once they came to town, they also came with a cadre, not only of folks at the Disaster Recovery Center that could help you folks individually through the SBA and through the different nonprofits that came together and state agencies. But they also brought in resources for us and then started pulling in other federal departments to identify what type of resources the federal government can bring in to partner with us as your local government entity that'll benefit all of you. So that's one of the things we've been learning about, and we spend a lot of time day in and day out in meetings and learning this. And so it's almost like we took the puzzle box out and we threw all the pieces on the floor, and you got to turn them over first and then start sorting some colors and the edges. And so, we're starting to get an idea of what type of federal resources we can bring back to the county, be they for housing or be they for economic development, bringing back some of our parks. We lost a lot of parks, in a sense, that access to Kapoho, to warm ponds, those are huge. So how can we bring back those resources in other areas, or maybe it's a different type of park this time, So yes, Mackenzie State Park is also, so we want to look at that, and so we've been gathering information, and that information can be shared back with you at the appropriate time. But you folks have your regular lives to live, and you've had some challenges too, getting to the store and staying close to your network. So please bear with us. We're getting closer. We will be out more often in the community in the coming weeks and months, and we're not going away. We're your local government, so we try. Yeah, great. We want to be with you. There's no purpose for local government without the community.
Excuse me. This might be best directed at Eileen. Aloha, Eileen. She in the back. This question might be best directed towards you. I was wondering if you have an idea of how much of the $550 million that has recently been allocated will be coming to the Puna area.
I guess I need a mic. Oh, excuse me. Okay.
Sorry, I'm not a good mic.
That's okay. I can't give you an answer because the very, very conceptual plan that was presented to council yesterday had no dollars attached. We were promised spreadsheets, my favorite thing. No, actually, I'm an economist. I love spreadsheets. But we're promised spreadsheets tomorrow on Friday, which hopefully will make some sense out of the financial pie chart that we looked at, because I have no idea how much is going to be directed at Puna. But understand this.
Will you fight for us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm already fighting.
For us to be on my back.
Thank you. And I am working closely with our state representative and our state senator, because this financial package, which the county's been working tirelessly on, especially this guy here, and I know Diane as well, but it cannot be successful if presented solely by the administration of the County of Hawaii. The way you get money from the state legislature is by working with the leadership at the House and at the Senate. And that was made very, very clear to all of us. So we have to figure out not only the details of the package, but we also have to present it properly and get the buy-in from, say, Sylvia Luke, who is head of the Finance Committee at the House, or De La Cruz, who runs the Ways and Means Committee at the Senate. They have to buy into this plan for it to sail through a special session successfully. And we are getting very close to missing that window. A special session needs to be asked for next week because it takes them 3 to 4 weeks to schedule. They will not schedule a special session past the middle of September because they're getting too close to general session in January. And then our ask will be folded into every other piece of legislation that's going through the state legislature. We don't want to see that happen. So I've been pushing really, really hard. And one of the reasons we had a very concept plan, I'm not sure that it really met conceptual, but a concept plan presented to us yesterday was because, I guess it was 2 weeks ago tomorrow, Friday, we've been having a meeting of all of the county agencies, all of the state agencies, even the federal, as well as nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity and Hope Services, and the realtors, the Board of Realtors, other private sector organizations, to try and come up with a housing plan, just the housing piece. And it's, ideas have been coming up, and we flushed out a few, maybe I think we have now A, B, C, D, E in proposed long-term housing plans, but we haven't attached dollars to those, and we haven't, flushed out the details. So I turned to everybody at that meeting 2 weeks ago and said, we have to have a plan next week, a conceptual plan next week. And it was not 1 week, it was more like 10 days, but they brought forward a concept plan. Now, I'm promised that we'll get more details, the dollars associated with portions of this plan tomorrow, Friday. And I think they gave the council the weekend to review that and get back with comments and recommendations.
It's a busy weekend for me, guys. It's election weekend. So I'm trying really hard to keep up with the job, keep up with the new requirements of emergency management in my district, and campaign and do an election at the same time. So I'm trying really hard to stay on top of everything. But like them, we are all working double time. So that $550 is not all asked from the state. That's what I wanted to let you know. Some of it we're going to hopefully get from the feds. Other portions might come from nonprofits. And there's already money on the table that is going to make up some of that $550, like an affordable housing bill that was passed in the state legislature this session that put $300 million, was it, on the table? Yeah. And not all of the other counties have jumped up and asked for that yet. So there's a lot of money still on the table there that we might be able to put into that $550 package. So there's other sources of money. There's also grants, and they've mentioned at least one that they have applied for and I think received one already, yeah? So there's other sources of funds. It's not all going to be an ask of $550 million from the state. But working out all those details, I'm really anxious to see tomorrow's spreadsheet because there was very little detail in the plan. But they at least got that conceptual plan to the table, and we were able to begin discussions yesterday. I was a little concerned, as many of you are, that this wasn't well publicized so that the public could come in and weigh in. It was a discussion with council and the administration. I saw a lot on Facebook last night. There were a lot of people that analyzed it, viewed the meeting, watched the meeting, and there were a lot of comments out there. And the main takeaway is that the public wants to be more involved in our process. And for that, I will absolutely advocate, because this is not a top-down kind of thing. And yes, there's got to be, most of this money has to be directed at Puna. We can help Puna by directing money to other parts of the island as well. But it has to be a holistic plan. It has to work for Puna, but it has to work for the whole island. So, great question. That's all I can tell you at this point until I learn more.
Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Molly Ward. I want to thank you both for coming out today. Hey, I had a question. Ron, you mentioned that members of the Leilani community may potentially opt in or opt out of a condemnation option. I wanted to ask if that is the case, and I'm repeating you correctly, if the city, the county may entertain putting that in writing to put a lot of fears and concerns to rest. And if so, if the county is considering an opt-in, opt-out condemnation option, if that may lend support to some individuals who have lost their homes and still have a mortgage to pay.
Just to clarify, that offer is not on the table. I was trying to explain that we're trying to come up with a range of solutions that hopefully would be a diverse enough mix so that each person could find a solution that works for their individual situation. And that one of those options might be condemnation. So again, no decisions have been made. A lot of analysis still needs to be done to confirm in which cases that would be appropriate, if at all. But our goal is to give people choices so that they can make their individual decisions that are best suited for them.
So if they had the option to opt out or opt in, and they opt in, would that potentially help them with their outstanding mortgage on a home that is far from standing?
And that's one of the issues we need to resolve is current law speaks to what value can be used in the case of condemnation. And that has significant impacts on what the county legally could compensate people for. So one consideration is to see if we might see if that law could be adjusted in certain circumstances. And then, and again, this is where it gets so individual specific, is how the value of a particular property is determined. And that then in turn is going to inform whether it's the right solution for somebody or not. But
It's definitely possible.
it's legal. I mean, it's the county, under certain circumstances, for a public purpose, can use eminent domain to secure property.
But only in an opt-in, opt-out type of situation. Some people don't want it to happen. They may be able to just not have that happen.
And under current law, not necessarily. There are circumstances where local government can exercise the authority. But I want to assure you that nobody's at this point considering imposing that on anybody. And certainly that decision has not been made. So.
We spoke previously regarding the...
Spotlight, can you use the mic?
Yeah, we love it.
The reason I wanted to clarify is because you mentioned earlier that there was a former disaster in Hilo. And in that former disaster, individual property owners were given a choice to opt in or to opt out. And that the county currently was taking some guidance from that prior option afforded to the homeowner so that they may have a voice and may have agency because, as you mentioned, so many people are in different situations. And to respect those different preferences.
If I understand correctly, what the choice they were given was between condemnation and acquisition.
Yes.
So they were going to have to move somewhere else, but their choice was what mechanism was used to facilitate that. In that particular example. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Mac Edwards. Thanks for coming out tonight. I live in Lava Zone 1, and I want to continue to live in Lava Zone 1 with all the other people that live in Lava Zone 1. So I appreciate you taking the time to consider and maybe offer me a choice. I have a suggestion and then a question. My suggestion is in Seaview, they don't have any wireless internet. I know that the tower still exists up on top of the crater. I don't know. Banff Wireless is a business that, communication-wise, I know that the Chiefs don't get the work done the Indians do, so maybe put it on your list. You talked about, money, businesses. That's one business you could help. I don't know what the issue is that he needs to get Seaview internet access, but just a suggestion, maybe jot a note down or reach out to him. Help one business at a time, right? My next question has to do with tourism. The county at one point asked for proposals for lava viewing. I hope we don't have to view any more lava for quite some time. However, I do know that Leilani Avenue, I believe, is county-owned. And people are going to want to go see what happened. You guys are R&D. You're talking about sites, bringing tourism in to benefit Pahoa, to benefit Puna, the entire island, or Ohana, basically. So do you guys have any plans, any ideas moving forward? Have you kicked it around? I'd like to know what you plan to do if you generate proceeds from that. If we as a community can be involved, maybe help give tours, tell our story. I know it's a big part of the healing process. You're not going to get that from some tour guide, but it is our community, and I think these people are here because they care about their community and their property. And so I'm just curious, and I think everybody else is too, is what's the long-term solution for Leilani Avenue, and what do you see, and will you involve us in it? Thank you.
Well, that's a big question. Okay, so I'm going to back up, and I've talked about this. So, excuse me for those who've heard this before, but we've been working on trying to identify a lava viewing site. Many of those sites were overrun by lava. So, Yes, they were perfect, but they were also very dangerous. As you all know, there was quite a bit of risk going on for last 90 some days. I think we're almost at 100. So that elevated risk, where a few things the county tried to do was, number one, we tried to be, with respect to Leilani Estates, because there are so many lot owners, there are so many small lots, there are a lot of lot owners or homeowners who moved out because whether it was mandatory or whether it was voluntary. And we wanted to be very respectful of the fact that you are a community with a public roadway going down the middle of it. And civil defense, the policy that was determined was that you would have restricted access to the whole subdivision. And again, that was to protect, health and safety, also protect private property from concerns about looting, squatters, and whatnot. So we have stayed away from going forward with the county operating any type of operation in Leilani or authorizing anyone to do that, okay? Because we wanted to be respectful of the Leilani community. And I know some people said it's okay, but some people said it's not okay. And so government has to be responsible in terms of that. So we looked at a number of different parcels, and we looked at, as we started losing public roadways, and part of the issue is you've got your very rural roads. They're narrow. They have no shoulders. There's no turnouts. So we kept saying, okay, well, we need to have a coordinated effort where people are either on buses, minibuses, or vans. We need to engage the Pahoa community so it benefits, so we need parking. So we were looking at all of those pieces. The challenge was finding roads that were public roads. We lost 132, we lost a chunk of 137. So we were back down to areas like the Y at Poho'iki and 132. So that was a really promising site. It was close to Pahoa. We could probably run a substantial number of visitors through there, as well as residents. And people could see it, get out, experience it. And then we had another conversation with Hawaiian Volcanoes Observatory. And they really made us aware of the fact that you've got, within a short distance, you had the vent. And then you had this lava coming out at high speeds, high volume, and it was called, they referred to it as perching. And I didn't think very much of it. And then you saw the river, and that was perfect. Perfect to see, because even standing on the ground, you could see lava bumping up and down, and you could see the fountaining in the cone. But when Hawaiian Volcanoes Observatory explained to us what perching meant, and we were standing on the ground out there, we realized the lava's up above us, and perching was really creating a pond up there. So you've got large volume of magma coming out and ponding, and you're below the site. And that site, if you look at the maps, the USGS maps, you'll see that blue line going along through that area and to the back of Lake Nanavali. And that's when we backed off. And we haven't been able to resolve it since because of that. Yeah. So it's been really unfortunate. But
it's the line of steepest descent.
Yes, the blue line.
Topographic line that the lava would likely follow. Yeah.
And it was disappointing. It's been disappointing.
Wow.
Yeah. But nobody got hurt there. So.
Yeah, I think you missed my question about Leilani Avenue and Fisher 8 being POW. If this is declared over and Leilani isn't condemned as a community and everybody in the mandatory evacuation zone is able to go home 80, 90, 120 days. I don't know. My roommate says you're not going home for a year. I'm fine with that, right? It doesn't really matter, but Leilani's a public road, right? And I'll tell you what, if I lived in Hilo and there wasn't a police presence at the top of Leilani, I'd drive straight down Leilani and get out of my car and go up and look at the giant hole in the ground that was Fissure 8. So my question was pertaining to what are your plans there?
Thank you for bringing this awareness to our attention. We know that we need to address the transition, and I had not thought of that, so we do need to address it. Thank you. It's huge.
And just, this is outside of our area of expertise, but every morning since whenever it was, Saturday or Sunday, when things started to slow, we have these 7 a.m. briefings every morning. Every morning we're asking the volcanologists, so is it done? And they keep saying no. They keep saying there's a pause, and they look at the historical record. The flow that's been most analogous has been the 1955 flow, and they've shared that in that one there were 2 pauses, one of I think about 5 days or a week, and another I think was 16 days. And then they said that the same patterns it has exhibited at Pu'uo'o, where there'll be an active flow for a while, it'll pause for a bit, and then restart. And so while we're all anxious for the day when the eruption is over, they keep cautioning us that while this may be a sign of that, we don't know. And, and so we'd love to get into post-eruption mode completely, but we also know that we are not definitively there yet. And so
I don't get it. I'm just talking in terms of when that meeting happens, that they say we can no longer pay police overtime to sit at the top of Leilani. I just want somebody to be prepared in an official capacity.
We'll go back and officially explore this, and if you have ideas, please feel free to forward them on to me.
So the Leilani Community Association has had developed a civil defense plan and a CERT plan, which civil defense ignored totally. It had been set up and been functional and approved by the civil defense, and then this came and nobody talked to Leilani Community Association. Now, Jay Turkovsky, the head of the president of the Leilani Community Association, knows there are 4 properties at the end of Leilani that have not been overrun, 3 of which have not been developed. There you got a turnaround. You got all you need right there. You might want to actually utilize the sources of information in the community to give you information on how to develop a solution.
So I'm going to make a commitment to you. I'll come back with a few people and we'll visit on this, okay? We'll bring some maps and you can point out, you can share your mana'o. And
see our house. Come see our house.
Okay.
Land of the pop and see the beautiful houses that are within spitting distance that they're telling us we can't go. See how that makes you feel.
All right. Thank you.
Excuse me, I got one more question for you. There are at least 50 and probably more homes that are east of Pomokai, totally functional, and people could make their decisions accordingly about where to live. We would not have to have moved 3 times. We could have stayed right where we were. Thereby, we wouldn't have been using FEMA money. We wouldn't have been sucking on the public tit. We would have been on our own, which is the way we wanted to be. And a lot of people would like to be that way now.
Okay, again, some of these decisions are not Ron and mine to make. But I will make a commitment to organize, to bring a team out, and we'll meet with those members of the Leilani community that would be interested in talking about options post eruption, and the barricades come down.
And if I could clarify maybe something I said earlier, and as it relates to in our minds with this distinction between immediate emergency response and longer term recovery and planning. In defense of the folks at Civil Defense, is in most cases, they're in no position to have a conversation in the midst of responding to an immediate crisis. And so they, you know, I know the situation has been dynamic. It's different now than it was at the time when some of the boundaries were originally established. But I just want to help you understand that, you know, they have to sometimes, their top of mind for them is always public safety. And so they're making decisions that they think are in the best interests of people's safety. And it cannot be a collaborative process all the time. It's like fire and police. It's a quasi-militaristic structure because you need to be in a command and control situation when you're dealing with an emergency, right? And so just so you understand, I mean, I said earlier that, you know, decisions made about the future of your community will certainly involve you, but we can't make that commitment in terms of emergency response. I understand we're now in a different situation, so I really appreciate Diane's offer that, you know, as we go through this, what may be a transition period, maybe it is time to sit down and talk about midterm, near-term ways to both protect people and communities at the same time, as the mayor often says, help people return to a sense of normalcy as much as possible. So.
Well, let's thank them for coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good job, guys. Thank you. And we'll hold you to that. We'll hold you to that.
Oh, I know that.
Okay. Yes. Would you like to finish? Tell us what you're... Close us out.
Aloha mai kako.
No, we're not closing the meeting.
Hand this to me.
Well, no, there's lots more agenda stuff.
Oh, there's more agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, we just wanted to let Diane.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we have not more on the agenda, but thank you.
Hey, so anyway, I for one also would like to thank these guys. What I heard tonight were pretty straight ahead answers to our questions, and I feel that's a step in the right direction. I think their acknowledgement that they can't give us all the answers is a fair one. But I did want to say something to Eileen and to these guys. Hey guys, I wanted to say one more thing to you. I heard two disconcerting things tonight. The first was that these meetings have been taking place on a weekly basis, making decisions, and this is the first I've heard of those meetings. And so the fact that we haven't got any information from those meetings on a regular basis, I think is again a source of a problem. The second thing, and I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds here, I appreciate the fact that you guys are working hard, and I appreciate the fact that you guys are putting on a lot of hours. This group of people here has had more sleepless nights in the past 93 days than you guys have. And so we expect you to work hard at this point. Sorry, but that's the job. And there are times when the train's on the track, and probably your job's a lot of fun. Train's off the track. And so we expect you guys to work really hard for us. Thanks for being here tonight.
I've got to leave as well, but my door is always open. My office is here in Pahoa, and I give out my cell number, and I listen and get texts from all of you. So my cell number is 896-1902 if you need it. I see somebody writing it down. That's not a problem, because in today's world, just staying in touch is a challenge. And with all of the communication snafus that we've had in the last 3 months, she just shared with me that they're in the mandatory evacuation zone. So Monday they went in to hurricane-proof their house, but they weren't allowed to go in because there was a hurricane coming. I mean, you know, this kind of stuff just, you know, shouldn't really be happening. But when I learn about it, I can help correct those communication snafus. So do take down my number, 896-1902. Thank you, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye. Yes, vote.
Okay, we have other things on the agenda. We've done the transparency letter. We're thinking of having a Labor Day celebration, a party for Leilani residents at the Leilani Junction of Pomokai. Okay? It says it's a community center, but we're going to start at the Leilani Junction of Pomokai. Maybe. We're going to try to get permission. Bring whatever you want to bring, right? Bring food, bring whatever. We're going to have we'll get a band, we'll have fun. We'll either do it on the street or we'll do it at the community center if we can get there.
So, but aren't they like citing people for like?
We'll work it out.
Yeah, they'll cite all of us.
Yeah.
Then it'll be on the front page.
Right. So, pardon me? Go ahead, say it.
Is it BYOB?
Yes. Anyway, that's one of the things on the agenda. We were also talking about Leilani moving forward. You know, what happens when the lava's pow? Any ideas of, what we can do? Do we want the placard system to stay in place? Do we need somebody at the top of Leilani?
Yes.
Okay. And I was just going to read the whole thing and let people pull up whatever they wanted to pull up. Access for the public. Right? Yeah, it's like, is that something we want to talk about? In future meetings, we're going to have to bring up these subjects. So think about them, and we're running out of time now. And we need to actually have a meeting on just tourism. What do we want? Right? And so these are the subjects that are going to go forward. These are for future meetings. And we all need to think about it and really come with how we feel. And tell your neighbors to come. How we feel. We need more people here. Right? We've got a mailing list of like 200 people. And we've got 40 to 60 people show up. We need better minds all gathered together. We're all great. But we still need to solve all these problems before we start. You want to talk?
Yeah. Were you going to do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And then the transparency letter we already did.
I did that.
That's off the table because of a conversation that took place between Robert Golden and Jay Travasky. We can't even bring that up in that form.
I made a mistake, obviously. Robert has talked to Jay Travasky, and our Labor Day celebration has been canceled. In that form.
Yeah.
This is moving from formal activities to political action. So the only way that we as residents of Leilani are going to go to the community center on the 4th of July is as a political action.
No,
Labor Day, sorry. Yeah. Labor Day, thank you. Is not by invitation and not by permit. It's going to be that we just walk in. And so, if any of you would like to be involved in that kind of an action, but by all means, let's talk about it. But but there isn't going to be a pre-planned party at the community center at this point in time. The county council meeting, about 30-ish people from Leilani testified. I know at least some of you did. I think everybody's feeling was that the testimony was fabulous. It was absolutely on point. I ran the whole gamut of subjects, but the takeaway I took from it was that the council really heard us. But the other takeaway I took from it was that the mayor didn't care, and so and the problem is that the problem is these guys work for the mayor. Talmadge Magno works for the mayor. So at the end of the day, if we don't get transparency with the mayor, lots of this is going to just continue to be stalled. I think that as a community association, that I agree completely with Steve. We need more involvement, but I, for one, feel like that those of us who are lucky enough to still be in our homes should make the #1 agenda item to get the people in the involuntary evacuation area back into their homes.
Yes.
And so I think we need to escalate that particular cause. And the transparency letter is going to be submitted in the next day or two. And at that point, if we do not get a positive response from Harry Kim in particular, we're going to reach out to as much media, not social media, as much press as we possibly can to try to force the situation and to find out why our mayor will not involve us in his decisions. Yeah, what's up, Andy?
Just one comment and suggestion on that. That's a really great idea. That's my top priority too. But you know, the way she was talking, the thing that stopped them from doing their viewing was having a discussion with the volcanologists. Maybe we should invite them to come and talk to Leilani Estates about, tell us, what is it, why are they keeping the barriers there, and give us directly, rather than through the government, what their best thoughts are on it.
The other thing I think right at the end of their talk, when they said they want to defend civil defense, I thought they were dancing on thin ice at that point, because I don't think at this point civil defense should be defended. It should be questioned as to its decision process, because it's made a lot of our lives unnecessarily complicated, and hasn't always been done with our genuine interests at heart. I don't know if you all feel similar to that, but that's my sentiment. Do we have any other agenda stuff? That's it. Okay, so unless somebody wants to throw something open for discussion, that's the end of our formal meeting. A big thanks to Lee Maniscalco for bringing a sound system. If you can afford to put $3 in the kitty, that helps to pay these folks here for it. I also think we should not have this meeting on this particular Thursday, because tonight is also the meeting of the LCA Board of Directors. So my suggestion is that next month we skip the third Thursday so that people can go to that meeting if they so choose. But Jay Travasky told me that they would get the minutes of the meeting that's taking place right this moment available to us as soon as Kim, the secretary, is able to put them together. And he'll be posting that on the a Facebook site. Anybody have anything else? Okay.
I was hoping that Libby could give us a translation of the Pule.
Okay. Libby's going to give a translation of the Pule for those who are interested.
Li'i valeno. A little bit. I'm calling, all of us are calling for knowledge, for the spirit, for the strength to be together, to make a difference. We are here together, and the fragrance of the flowers and the power of this place and the aloha that exists here in this group will be our strength and will grow as it has been. It is our strength. It is keeping us on the track for healing. And so the aloha, the ohana, the family, is here and is out there, and we're touching them, and that's why we can keep going forward.
Thank you.
With aloha.
Thank you.